Hello, everybody. I'm Carol Erger-Fass, exhibit curator here at the library, and I want to thank everybody for coming out on a Sunday afternoon to celebrate Marlene Siff and her fabulous exhibit, Finely Tuned. If you were here last Sunday and saw Robert Hitchcock, you may have heard him describe his music as paintings you can listen to. And when I heard that, I wished I had thought of that. Because this body of work from Marlene's series, 7 Finely Tuned, is just that. You can literally listen to Marlene's inspiration for each of her pieces in the show by scanning the QR code on each label. And when you do, you can really see the music, which is why we timed the show to be the visual arts component of VersoFest. Marlene said she was born with a paintbrush in her hand. After receiving her degree in fine arts from Hunter College, she began her professional career as a teacher and then went on to an extremely successful career designing bed linens for J.P. Stevens and kitchen collections for J.C. Penney. Since leaving the commercial world and devoting herself to her artwork, she's been juried into 153 competitions throughout the U.S. and has won 45 awards and counting. She's exhibited and is in the permanent collections of museums and galleries worldwide, the list way too long to detail here. I first met Marlene in 2019, and I had the good fortune of visiting her in her home and studio to start planning for what eventually would be this exhibit. This was, of course, 2019 BC, before COVID. Anyway, so in her house, which she designed, it was more like a living museum. And her paintings covered every available wall and were even hanging from the ceilings. As we toured the house, the kitchen, the dining room, the basement, even the bathrooms, they were all filled with her artwork, and she had a story to tell about her inspiration for each and every piece. This one was inspired by a wedding anniversary, that one the birth of a grandchild. Not all the associations were happy. For instance, the war of Afghanistan. That inspired a whole series of work. But all through, her geometric, multi-layered dimensional pieces seemed to be giving order and form to her states of mind. All 7 pieces of Finely Tuned were hanging in her studio, and each piece had its own pair of headphones. I was literally blown away. But the logistics of hanging it got the better of us, and we planned a show with easier-to-hang pieces. But cut to 2023, and after waiting so long, we decided to scrap the old plans and start figuring out how to get Finely Tuned into the library. It wasn't easy. Marlene had moved in the interim, and everything was in storage now. It took a team of amazing people. Tom Bernstein came with his broken foot and his son Alex. Rolando brought his team of movers and hangers, and the art team, of course, was on hand, all to get this up on the wall. It couldn't have happened without you all. Special thanks also goes to Miggs Burroughs for keeping Marlene calm and pulling this show together, which I'm sure will be a great conversation. And our library team, Eric on AV, and David Bibbies on video, and to the Drew Friedman Community Arts Center for their continuing support of arts programming at the library. Thanks.
Well, congratulations on a fantastic show.
Thank you very much. Before we start, I just want to say, I want to thank Carol Erger-Fass. She's been incredibly helpful, supportive, and wonderful to me getting this whole show together. Thank you.
So, well, first of all, here we are studying contrasts, black and white.
Black and white.
and all this color behind us. So you're a slim person, I don't know what the right way to say it, diminutive, whatever, and your work is so huge and bold, and is that, where does that come from? You think, that maybe you would work in smaller scale?
It's very hard to explain. My son Brad always said, Mom, you have to work smaller so you can sell more paintings. I just think big. The work that I do in making the maquettes, which are small, they just have to be big. They just sort of explode. And of course, in my former studio, I had such an incredible space, so I was able to just create the size to fill my head and the space.
Yeah, I think, a lot of people don't realize, they think artists, it's just a matter of creating something and putting it on the wall, but there's materials to buy, there's the idea, creating the art, moving the art, installing the art, and then taking it down and then bringing it back. There's a lot that goes on, and
Well, the work is extremely technical, and nobody understands that. There's so much measuring to do and figuring out, and because my work is dimensional, and then the fact of safety and hanging it on the wall on cleats, and there's so much that goes into it before I actually get the work built. I work with a carpenter to build it, and then started gluing the linen onto the backing, because formerly we used to stretch, and when you stretch, linen wants to wrinkle. And so it always became a problem in re-stretching. So I decided to start gluing it directly onto the wooden backing. And then everything that goes into it is phenomenally complicated and technical. Most people think, oh, you just paint a couple of flowers a day and call it a day, right? But it's not like that.
Yeah, yours is like an engineering feat. I mean, so the maquettes are models, like scale models.
Yes, it's a scale. And I usually do one or more, depending upon what's in my head. And I usually have the vision in my head of what I'm going to do. That comes first before anything. And it's always related to a body of work that has a title. Like this is called Seven Finely Tuned. There are 5 of them here. And one of them is hanging in my house. And one of them was sold.
I think, okay, so this is one of them. We'll start here.
This is called Fugue.
Fugue.
And in music, fugue are melodies that kind of intertwine and repeat. And so I tried to create the image that I had of a fugue and listening to the music. This is the most important thing, and I really urge everyone to listen to the music for each one of the paintings, because that was the inspiration for this work. And so you really get the feeling of what I was thinking about and how I was inspired. Each one of the paintings took about a year to do, from concept to completion, a whole year. So, and there were 7 in the group. And so that was a 7-year period. And that's a long time. I'm just not prolific.
But you, now, do you listen to that music? Is that constantly on in your head? Do you have to have that music in your head?
The whole year that I painted Fugue, that's all I listened to with the music that I chose. And that was a big research project, because for each one of the works, the name, I'd had to research out, like if it was staccato. There was one that's not here, it's called staccato. And then I listened to all kinds of staccato music and chose maybe 50 different, mostly classical pieces, because that's really from my background of music. And then for the show, I had to pick out like 1 or 2, because nobody's going to listen to more than that. And so that's how, I chose just 1 or 2 that are here.
You've had musical training yourself, and
yes.
Did you play or do you play an instrument?
Yes, I played the piano. I studied the piano for about 12 years. And when I took the test for music and art, which was now Fiorello LaGuardia High School in New York, and then it was called the High School of Music and Art, I probably could have taken the test for music, but with the piano, I worked so hard at it. It was always a struggle. I played well, but it was a struggle. With the art, as Carol said, I was born with a paintbrush in my hand. It just flowed out of me, the art. It was always there, and it was like an obsession. I have to be working. When I have a paintbrush in my hand, I'm a very happy person.
And this one is...
Okay, well, that's called Crescendo, and that was inspired by the Me Too movement. Oh. And it was just starting, and it was escalating. So there's the word crescendo. And of course, pink is not my favorite color. I very seldom use it, but it had to be pink, of course. And there are maquettes in the exhibition where you can see that work. And I have a funny story to tell you because I was very big in sports when I was young, and because this is related to the Me Too movement, but it also goes further than that. And I was a ping pong player, and I grew up in the Bronx in Parkchester, which was a community where they had wonderful playgrounds for children. So I would go to the playground and play ping pong all the time. I was maybe 10 years old, and they were having a tournament. And I said, oh, I'm going to join this tournament. So I told my mother that I'm going downstairs, I'm going to the playground, and I'm playing in the ping pong tournament. And she looked at me and she said, oh, that's wonderful. She said, but if you play any boys, don't beat them. Could you imagine? Well, I went down to that playground, to the ping pong tournament, determined. I was always very determined, and I won the tournament.
All right, well.
But also, the determination was there, and that's what you need to do to be an artist. You have to be determined, and you can't give up. You have to just continue with your heart and do the work that really means something to you.
And do you see the finished product in your head, or do you dream? I'm wondering, do any of this come to you in dreams, or is it also like a task? I have to think of my next project, and you just sit down like a writer at a blank page and just, or do they visions come to you?
No, I start with the name of a body of work so that it all makes sense. Like the body of work before this was called Elements of Peace. I worked on that for many years, and there were 47 works, and it was a very difficult body of work because I was dealing with all the upset, the tragedy, the political issues that were going on all over the world. And it really was escalated by the war in Afghanistan and the work that I did honoring all the soldiers that died in Afghanistan. That's hanging in Jim Himes' office, Congressman Himes' office. And that was a major, major work. And that was very hard. It took a lot out of me. So to do this work, it was like music was so much part of my life. And I always work with music in my studio. I could never work without it going. And when I studied in school. And so music was something that was wonderful and could create all kinds of wonderful, calm feelings without dealing with all the tragedy. So that's why I got into this body of work.
Now, this piece looks very positive. I mean, if you're going to, give it identify it as...
It's called Fanfare, and it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like fanfare music, like bands playing, and happiness.
Yeah. No, and
it was very difficult work to do. And the work is very mentally challenging, tremendously mentally challenging, and also physically challenging.
Mm-hmm. And and the scale of it, I mean, this is almost life-size, I guess. But what I notice is, it's not, at first glance, it's just, it's stripe after stripe, different colors, which go together. But there's these tiny little thin gold stripes in between. What was that? And they're not everywhere. Do you see where?
It just was a mental and visual thing that it had to be there.
Yeah.
When I'm working on it. And by the way, the colors that you see in all of my work are always mixed. I never, ever work with a color straight out of the jar. I mix everything. Sometimes a color can take a day. Sometimes it can take a week. It has to be exactly what's in my head. And it's very hard to explain it. And when it's there and it's right, you just know it.
I'm wondering, because I've heard authors say that, they create a character in a novel or a short story, and the character tells them what they need to be saying or what to do. Does that relate to you? Like when you start this, does this piece start to tell you what it needs? Like, I need more red, I need a green stripe, do you have like a this mystical communication with your own art.
Well, that's why I make maquettes. So I work it out in the maquette, and sometimes it gets changed on the painting when you look at it and you step away from it. In my former studio, I could really step away from the work, and it tells you what to do. Yes, definitely.
Oh, this could be an abstract portrait of us, I guess. Yeah, so was this, why all of a sudden, gray tones and it's such a different approach?
Well, Legato, it was sort of like it took me away from all the brilliant colors and all the excitement, because Legato was smooth and flowing.
Oh, yeah.
And the shape of the work lent itself, and I just decided to give up color, which is hard for me to do, because I consider myself more a colorist.
Yeah, well, but it's amazing, and that's the shape. I don't know if it comes through or not, but there's the curve, it's dimensional. So this rolling, like wave-like. So it not only is the sections of grays rolling and curved, but the surface is curved as well.
Also, in all of these works, I was working with iridescent colors, which was a whole new thing for me.
What is it?
Iridescent,
iridescent
colors. I'd never worked with them before, and that could get very commercial looking, you don't, and I didn't want it to be really commercial looking, but I spent a lot of time with glazes, different kinds of glazes, and of course this is all iridescent colors. And the fun is mixing them and having them all work in the proper manner. This was the most difficult work structurally, because it's got all those 8 panels, and each one goes on separately, and it hangs off a cleat in the back. And there was a lot of trouble with the cleat because it never looked right. And I want people to look at my work from the sides as well as from the front, because it's dimensional. Even though it hangs on the wall, it's like sculptural. It is sculptural.
But you're...
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
And, I didn't realize
That's all right.
I'm talking with my hands. Oh, okay, thank you. And so finally, we got a cleat in the back. When you go back in there, that looks acceptable, and it's strong to hold all of these panels together.
That's funny. I thought when I did look, not today, I mean, when it first went up, I'm interested how it was supported, but I wondered how many people look behind it or try to look behind it, but I was impressed how, I remember, there was a famous Steve Jobs, I think when he did his first computer, and the story was he showed it to his father, and it was just, kind of a raw thing. There was a screen, but in the back it was open and you could see all the guts of it, and the father said, this looks horrible from the back. And he goes, well, nobody's going to look at the back. And he goes, you have to make it look good on all sides. It doesn't, because somebody's going to look.
Right, well, and because I want people to look on the sides and the back of my work, I think that's important, because then they see the construction. It gives them more of a feeling of what this is all about.
Right.
This is not in the show. It's hanging in my house, and I couldn't move it out. It was too much. This is called Staccato, and staccato music, very jumpy and bouncy, and so this is the image that came into my head. It was fun choosing the colors for all the different boxes.
What do you listen to? What music has staccato, conveys staccato to you?
I'm trying to remember. It's written on...
Oh, okay, that's all right.
We'll have to go back.
Have you ever done has pop music ever inspired you? Have you ever?
Oh yes.
Really? Oh.
Yes. And in fact, in the past 5 years, I've been listening to a lot of pop music, because I was truly a classicist. That's what I studied, and that's what I related to. But there are some pop music songs there, including the Beatles.
Oh, excellent. Now you were, originally, when we first met, I don't know, 20, 30 years ago, you were.
Wait, I'll tell you
What?
when. You designed my first business card.
Oh.
I don't know if you remember that. Do you know how many years ago that was?
I was guessing 30.
At least.
At least.
At least.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And
right.
I know, and I designed stuff for your
I
husband.
still have the card.
Do you? Oh.
I'll have to show it to
Wow,
you.
okay. I might not want to see it. But the point was that you were a textile designer, right? Very famous, very, renowned textile designer for J.P. Stevens. So that went, pillowcases, sheets, all sorts of things like
never
that?
took a commercial art course, never studied textile design. It just came out of me because I was looking for sheets and I couldn't find anything I liked. So I started making up some patterns, not knowing about repeat, not knowing about anything. And we went to the top 3 companies, Burlington, J.P. Stevens, of course with my husband, because he was the business head. I was just the artist. And they took me on immediately. It was unbelievable. It was one of these things in my life. It just happened. And I ended up with 2 of the top-selling patterns in the history of the company. I mean, it was unbelievable. I was making more money than the president of J.P. Stevens, and those were the days when I made money. That hasn't happened again.
I'm just quickly curious how it works. Do you get, like, every time someone buys a pillowcase, you get 10 cents? I mean, how?
Oh, definitely. My husband worked out the whole contract
Nice.
with a percentage on the sales. Oh, yes. And there was Yves Saint Laurent, and there was Angelo D'Anguia, and they did collections for the top of the line for them, and I did collections for the mass market. And they originally, 2 of the designs, they said, we're going to cut a couple of the colors out. I said, no, you can't do that. It'll ruin the whole thing. I mean, you as an artist understand that if you make something and it has a certain amount of colors, every color means something. I said, you can't do that. And he said, oh, people in the mass market, what do they know? They don't know anything. I said, they don't buy, you know. I said, well, you sell these sheets there and they will buy them. And they ended up being the 2 top patterns in the history of the company.
Because this, I mean, it triggered all that conversation because this looked like it could be, you know, I mean, that would be make cool sheets or wallpaper. You know. I mean,
maybe I should do that again and make some money.
What?
This is called Septet, and it was sold. It's in a private collection. The owner of the bulb company that's in Bridgeport called Color Blends. And he restored one of these old Bridgeport mansions, and there was a show there. I was invited into the show, and the painting was in the show, and he bought it. And it's called Septet, and of course I listened to Louis Armstrong and Duke Ellington for 1 year. And it has 8 panels.
With
8, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There are 8 gradations of color and 7 panels relating to the 7 finely tuned, and the 8 panels related to an octave on the keyboard. And that's how it all came about. And I worked a lot on this with iridescence, and the panels are different iridescent not colors, but some are more iridescent than others. You can't really tell unless you see it in person a little bit on the screen.
No, and what's the surface? It's just painted. It's not lacquered with anything. This is just the surface of the paint.
It's just paint and experimenting with glazes.
Yeah, it's
and
stunning.
it's linen that's glued on wood. And we bought these huge tubes that they use to pour concrete in to build bridges strength for foundations, cut them in half. And you have no idea what it was like to glue the linen on that and have it perfect. It kept buckling. And we were stepping all over it with our feet and pushing it down. It was a huge project, but it was perfect at the end.
Yeah, that's stunning. I mean, the choices of, shapes and the color shades. Anyway, here's another one with a lot of various colors, and it's musically inspired as well.
I'm forgetting the name of this one. This was in the Elements of Peace group, and it was, I'm sorry, I forgot the name of it.
Anybody know what I'm that's okay.
It's meaning going on forever, meaning peace going on forever. That was the concept of it.
And is it on linen also, wrapped on?
Yes, curved surfaces. These were bent surfaces. The wood was bent, actually, with water. It was a major project just to get the wood to bend.
So there's 12.
And then it's glued onto a backing.
There's 12 squares per panel and 3 panels, so 36 different things. So, and they're all mixed, like you said, that nothing comes out of the tube. So you're just playing.
I'm sorry?
they're all mixed colors. Nothing comes out of the
there
tube.
isn't a single color on there that was from the...
What? In perpetuity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
In perpetuity, meaning peace in perpetuity. And the interesting thing is that body of work that took me so long is so apropos, more apropos now even than it was then.
Yeah.
It's just frightening. It's really frightening. Every single one of the works that I did in that body of work, and there were 47 of them, is more apropos now.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. It's one of your quotes, which I had to write down because I never remember. It says, "My hope is to inspire strength, power, courage, and happiness at this particular time of great stress in our country." So you feel that art can actually make a difference? I mean, I'm asking as a...
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's wonderful for the artist to be able to express their feelings about what's going on. I mean, that's so much a part of my work. I mean, it's just not bright colors and interesting shapes. It's about what's going on in the world. And it's also about how I feel about it.
Right, and music on its own does similar. That's just the beautiful thing about
Yes.
expression, self-expression, that can turn people's heads and minds, hopefully. There's another back to black and white. Adam. I gotta give him. Okay, so are these blocks? This is not. Are these on wooden blocks? What's the materials?
Yeah, they're individual, stretched, and they're like 2 inches deep, and then they're superimposed one on another.
Consensus.
Consensus, yes, thank you.
And what are the stripes? Is that paint?
And consensus now, peace. I mean, that's what we're looking for.
Yeah, of course.
We're looking for that all over, in all the places where the horrors are going on. We need consensus. That's what we need. And it's the idea of the shapes, like on the bottom, the half circle and the half circle, and they're merging together.
Oh, they're yearning to be one, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's interesting. So they've been pulled apart.
So everything in my work has a meaning to it. Yeah. And I don't want to have to explain it. I want people to look at my work and get what they get out of it or what they see in it.
Yeah, well, no, but it helps. It's nice. It adds that other layer to it. I mean, it's beautiful on its own, but to know that, there's the separation and the...
That's hanging in the Housatonic in their permanent collection.
This is hard. This is like an optical illusion. Is this...
Well, it's movable. It's movable.
Is it a disc or it's a flat...
Yes, and it's on a hinge.
Oh, okay.
It's in a private collection. It's terrible because I'm forgetting. I have so many paintings.
Oh, so it's a circle. It's a cutout thing in a circular hole that moves.
Yes, and the backing that you see looks flat, but it's not. It's very deep, so that can move back and forth.
Okay.
That was also an element of piece.
Shifting balance.
Still shifting balance, right. So you understand what that's all about, shifting balance, right? And it's going on right now.
Precarious, and then if it's in balance, it'll be a seamless scene. I mean, just
I mean,
no
you can
interruptions.
close it, or you can leave it open, or you can open it on the other side, tilt it the other way. It's in a private collection. The collector bought it from the online. He saw it online, and he bought it. And I told him, "Don't you want to come and look at it? How can you buy a work of art?" He said, "No, I just love it." It was from the Saatchi collection online. So I said, "Well, you have to come and see it in person." So he did come up, and anyway.
And then, like I said, the artist's job is not just done with, then, I mean, this gets into the nitty-gritty of just shipping it and protecting it and insuring it and unpacking it and...
Oh, yes.
Never mind. You don't have to go in. I don't want to give you any undue stress.
This is called Entente Cordiale, and it's French for agreeing, two countries or two people coming up with an entente cordiale.
Entente,
so it's the meshing, and that's what we need right now in a lot of places in the world right now, an entente cordiale.
And yet it's got this sawtooth design, which is kind of menacing in a way.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Because to get an entente cordiale, it's usually the background is a very menacing state of affairs.
No. Okay. Yeah. But if they fit together, once again, if the puzzle pieces fit, then it's all together and smooth and
right.
copacetic.
It's a very, very, that's hanging in my house now.
No.
It's a very big work. This is called Humanity. Again, an element of peace. And humanity, it's like hugging, everybody hugging. And there's like no end. There's a circular feeling. There's no end to it, that of peace going all around and complete.
So we've seen a couple of white, gray things in a row. Do you do those in kind of a series, or can you go from something like this and then all of a sudden do a super colorful one, or do you have to just, are you in in a mode of just, I'm just doing monotones from now for the next 6 months or a year or whatever?
That's a really good question. Well, in this particular body of work, there was some that had to be in color. And then I thought about it, and I had discussions with several people, because for me to let go of not using color was monumental. And I finally decided that this had to be white. White is peace. It's calm and it's peace. So conceptually, it was the correct thing to do for a body of work called Elements of Peace.
Yeah, that's very soothing. And another.
This one is called Truth, Politics, Lies. Totally appropriate.
Funny, they all look alike.
Now.
I don't know.
Right. It's in a show right now at BWAC, the Brooklyn Waterfront Artists Coalition.
Oh.
And it's in a show there. And I kept saying, this work should get into a show because it's so, what's going on now? And I got very lucky and I got into that show.
And what's it made of? Is it wood?
It's same thing, wood.
Yeah.
That was bent. Yeah.
When you bent, who bent? I mean.
Well, I work with a carpenter,
Okay.
right? Because I can't do this.
Yeah, I would say it's very.
But I work together with the carpenter, and then the linen is glued on it, and then it was gessoed. The linen is always gessoed like 3 times, and then it was painted white.
Yeah. Again, the purity of the form is what's so stunning of it. It's just like it came from outer space.
It took me a long time to accept the fact that the white paintings looked white and not colored.
Well, it's all about, form. I mean, Orson Welles once said it was sort of a diverse connection here, but Citizen Kane, why did you do it in black and white when color was just coming into the movies and everyone was doing color movies? And he said, because the purity of the form, I just wanted people to look at the shapes and the shadows, and color is distracting in that context. But this, What else?
This is called History and Geography. This is in the Mattituck Museum in the Permanent Collection. This is one of my favorite paintings.
Yeah, it's in the lobby. I just saw it there like a month ago. I was there for a reason.
Oh, yes? Yeah, I really, you have favorites of your own, and this is one of my favorites. And it's history and geography, and it's all about elements of peace, right? History of the world and geography of the world and what's going on in it.
Is it like a disjointed, folded map? Because these look like they're folds or wanting to fold.
Yeah, in and out, and in and out,
yeah.
and up and down. I mean, that's like entente cordiale, trying to work things out.
There's another quick quote. It says, I aim to penetrate the illusions of reality, reaching the mystery and essence of the soul. So what are the illusions of reality, that things aren't what they appear? I mean...
Well, it's always what is beneath the surface. It's not what you see. It's what you look into and find out. It's just not, you just can't look at surface. In relationships, it's the same thing. It's delving into what you're doing and what you're seeing and what you're thinking to figure it out.
And it usually falls to the artist to draw people to that, to that revelation. Okay, now total flip side here.
This is also in a private collection called Neo-Gothic. The same collector who owns the one with the circle in it that rotates. Neo-Gothic, an element of peace, right? It just, to me, you know, the name said it all to what I felt about what's going on in the world.
And you know, it's all about light. I mean, the light and the shadows. And it's going to change with different lighting and different houses.
And especially with black. Black is really interesting with the lighting on it and everything, because there's so many shades of black. It's just not one color.
Now, this is more. We're in the next few slides. It's interesting because things are a little. I don't know. They look harmonious. Maybe isn't the right word, but they look more energetic. Maybe that's the word.
First of all, this curves like this. It doesn't look that way on the screen, but it's a work that curves like this, and I need the name of it again, Adam.
Spectrum. Full spectrum.
Thank you. Full spectrum. And actually, the grandson who just gave me the name, when he saw this, and I said to him, Jordan, what does this painting mean to you? I don't know if you remember this. And he looked at it, and he said, because he knew it was from the body of work, Elements of Peace, countries, each one a different country, and all the different people in each of the squares trying to get together, trying to get along. And that's exactly what that was all about. He just saw it in what I was doing. Every one of them, a different country, with different people in each of the countries, and trying to get along with each other, and then trying for all of them to get along together. And the curving makes it more enveloping. So when you're standing in front of it.
Right, you're immersed in it more.
And this one is called Survival. It's all about an element of peace, trying to survive, you know, and that's a lot of that going on right now. It's just so amazing to me that when I did this, so much was going on, and now it seems as though things are worse. Yeah. It's terrifying.
Yeah. No, it's, well, everybody's constant search for harmony and peace.
This is one of my favorite paintings. It's very big, and it's called The Great Mystery That Surrounds Us. Life is very strange. It's very inexplicable. You can't figure it out. Every day it's a different thing, and there's this great mystery that's surrounding us. And there are no answers, or we're looking for the answers and we can't find them. So I try to envision that in this work.
I want to speak. We don't have want to get to some questions, but we'll want to go through these too.
This is called Breaking Free, and this was at a time when we were building an addition onto our house. It took 3 years, and I couldn't work. And we built my wonderful studio. And so when I was finally able to get back to work in my new studio, this was the first painting I made. It was called Breaking Free. You know, just go for it.
That definitely communicates that, as does this. So again,
this is called Paraspora ad Astra. And it's called Through Thorns to the Stars. That's the Latin for Through Thorns to the Stars. And there were a lot of personal things that, health things with my husband that we went through. And the idea of through thorns, you can climb to the stars. So that was what that signified.
And there's a lot more just a peripheral, they're very more jagged and more unsettling almost,
Yeah. I need the name again.
Well, let's go. We have to get through a few more before we take questions. So if that...
This one's called Centered.
Centered. Okay.
Yes, and it was one of the few times that I felt centered in my life, and that's the way I express it. It was also influenced by Matisse, who is probably in my top 5, and it was influenced by his painting. He has a painting called Basket of Oranges. And I just loved that painting so much, and I just kept it in my head, and somehow it influenced me to paint this. This is called Changes, and again, there were a lot of changes going on in my life, so that was how I expressed it.
This is the one in Jim Heim's office, right?
Yes, this was a major work. This was when the New York Times, I think it was in 2009, where they published all the soldiers that we lost in Afghanistan. It's called Fallen Heroes, Afghanistan. At the same time, there was a major show at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and it was called Hidden Treasures of Kabul. And I went to see the show, and it was absolutely spectacular. And it was all these golden objects that were so incredibly spectacular that they dug out of the sand that were hidden because otherwise they would have been stolen. So I came home, and just the article came out with the pictures of every soldier and their ranks.
I did a close-up so you
Yes.
could get an idea of...
So I was able to I set them up on huge sheets of paper. I had someone in town span them onto huge sheets of paper. And I decided to put them under the flag, under the stripes. They became the white stripes in the flag. And I went to Campo Beach because I wanted sand related to the hidden treasures of Kabul. And I took this big board, which is behind it. If you show the smaller one, the board behind the red stripe, was painted gold, but then I wanted to glue sand on it, and I went to Campo Beach, and I brought back sand, and it looked horrible. It was all messy and dirty and everything. So I went to the art store, Michael's, whatever, and I bought 3 different colors of real sand, and I mixed them together. Again, couldn't use the sand that was already colored, and I came up with that color, glued it onto the board, and then in gold, the gold was the writing hidden, Afghanistan. I wrote the words to make it look like it was a golden chain, like one of the chains that was hidden under the sand. And then I needed shells.
Shell casings,
Yes.
right on the bottom.
And I
casings.
didn't know where to get them. And I worked at it for a long time. And then finally I realized we had a friend who went to West Point. So he said, I will get you the shells. And he sent me boxes of shells. And one summer, Jordan, my grandson Jordan, and I picked out the shells. He put them in different groups, different sizes and shapes, and I glued them to the base. And that base that they're sitting on is also gold with sand on it to represent the fallen heroes from Afghanistan. I cried over that for a very long time.
Yeah.
And Congressman Himes heard about it, and he came to my studio, and he has it in he's had it forever.
That's fantastic.
I'm glad that he keeps getting reelected.
Yeah, me too. I think this might be the last slide, but what?
This is, I did this when the first suicide bombings occurred in Israel. It was horrible, and I was able to get all the names. That's not the backing that it's on. Is that the only picture that you have?
Yeah,
of it?
I think. Yeah, right.
Because
That's
it's
the
on
last
a
slide.
white backing.
Oh, okay.
And it has the name of the work, and it also has the names of all the people that were killed, the towns that they lived in, and their ages. And I worked on that for 9 months, and that went into the B'nai B'rith Museum, but it's now at the Skirball Museum in Cincinnati.
Well, it's amazing. I think before we take questions, I understand, because we've talked a lot, that you started sort of a new direction, and it involves haiku. You've been writing haiku for an art project. Is it tied in with an art project?
Last October, I went on the trip of a lifetime. It was to Japan. with the Herbert F. Johnson Museum. I'm on the advisory council, and my husband and I traveled with them many, many times, incredible trips. And so I had never been to Japan, and it was an incredible trip. I just loved it so much, and I brought back Japanese paper, and that's going to be my next body of work. And it's going to be based on haiku poetry. I started writing haiku poems. I don't know where it came from. They just came flying out of me. And so I have 28 of them now, and the same grandson, Jordan, has become my editor. He writes beautifully, and he edits all of them so that I know that they're okay to do. And each one of the poems is going to be written in text, in pencil, on paper. That will be a work on paper as part of a whole new body of work.
Right. So could you read it? I know you brought. I asked you to bring.
Yeah.
I asked you to bring a couple, just so we get a little flavor of it.
3 of them. And a haiku poem is, the first line is 5 syllables, the second line is 7 syllables, and the third line is 5 syllables. Attention to the smallest details make beauty appear everywhere. This is as a result. I walk at Campo Beach every day. I race walk there. This was one of the days I came home and wrote this. Prussian blue water, rippling, covering the sound, exuding calmness. And then, I guess I don't have the...
Did one fall down?
No.
Oh, there. This one fell out of your pocket. Oh, Carol has it.
Oh, thank you. Okay, this was, when on the trip to Japan, it was in a town called Odawara, which is between Kyoto and Tokyo, where they have the Anura Observatory, where we watched the moon rise. What an incredible experience that was. And we stayed at a hotel. They have mineral waters there. They're famous for their mineral waters. And we stayed at a hotel that was a spa. And I saw the sunrise every morning from the Pacific. It was, what an experience. This was my poem. View from my window, sun rising over Pacific, golden glitter sky.
Well, that's a perfect way to end our little talk. So thank you. We'll take questions.
Okay.
So this is not an option. If you want to ask a question, you must go to that microphone, because this is being recorded by the library. And if not, they won't hear you. And if I try to repeat it, I'll mess it up. So thank you. I think Kathy Benowitz is first. And thank you.
Hello. This is just really terrific. We're very happy here in Westport, the Westport Public Art Collections, to also have your work in it, as well as, alongside the major museums that you've talked about. So that's really terrific. I have a question about artistic influences. You mentioned Matisse, which I thought was just fascinating. But I also think of Ellsworth Kelly. I think of the now sadly late Frank Stella, and as well as Donald Judd. And I'm just wondering if those are applicable, or other artists that have really inspired you and your different directions that you've gone with your work.
Thanks.
Well, I loved all of their work, but I would say Matisse and Picasso. I'm going back further than the more contemporary artists. Monet. Very much. I would say maybe those 3. And, Cézanne. Cézanne was a major influence in my work.
All right. Anybody else want to make that long walk up to the microphone? No, sorry. Last call. Okay, well, we covered a lot of territories, but it probably speaks well of your talk, because you covered a lot of ground, and thanks again. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Miggs.
Great, yeah. Is it okay? Perfect, that was wonderful, thank you.